I've got 3 bottles that I just took out of the fridge right here. Back to the cranberry by Black River, which is pure organic cranberry juice. And there's only 10 grams of sugar in here. And it doesn't say that they've added anything.
Okay.
They said, it's undiluted.
You know what else has 10 grams of sugar?
What?
Captain Crunch.
Okay, so you're saying it's too much. I mean, I'm gonna have to either throw all these. They've been in my fridge for a while, and I take about a quarter of a cup at a time. And also, okay, in the future, I'm thinking I'm not going to buy these when it's not from concentrate. Does that make a difference?
Nope. That'll make a difference.
Okay. So, all right. So even 10 grams compared to the 22 grams. I mean,
how many grams of sugar are you allowed per day?
I don't know.
American Heart Association says for women, 25 max per day. For men, 37 and a half. Okay. So if that juice is giving you 10 and you're allowed 25, that only leaves you 15 for the rest of the day. You okay with that?
What's a serving? What is a serving?
Depends on what it is.
Like this juice.
Well, that's 10 grams.
1 cup. Oh yeah. 1 cup is 10 grams.
Duh.
Okay.
That's the point. The whole point of this talk is it's everywhere and you don't even know it.
Yeah. And the honey, I'm sorry, you may have talked about this. I wasn't able to get there.
Honey is sucrose. It's the same thing. It's glucose and fructose. No difference. Everyone thinks honey is safe. It's not. It's the same thing.
So the manuka doesn't make any difference.
The good thing about honey is it has its own taste and it's relatively expensive. And so people tend to use less of it. That's true. By the way, honey, if you don't buy the really, really expensive honey, is probably just high fructose corn syrup. Honey fraud is one of the biggest fraud items in the entire food world. And I have a colleague named Mitchell Weinberg, who actually has developed a certification system for honey called Genu Honey to make sure that people are actually getting honey and not high fructose corn syrup. If you're buying cheap honey at the store, chances are it's not honey.
Thank you very much for that. A quick follow-up. You mentioned the guidelines, just out of curiosity. Okay, so those are the guidelines. Do you agree with the level of guidelines, the guideline level?
Which guidelines?
Exactly. Specifically, the sugar guidelines that you mentioned for men and women.
Yeah, and I helped write them.
Oh, okay.
I better think it's okay. What I don't think is okay is the USDA's guidelines, and because the food industry got to them, and they're they say 10%, which is like 12 teaspoons as opposed to 6 or 9. So they basically say double of what is actually safe.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying that. And now I'm going to bring in Crystal. Crystal, you are unmuted. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. Dr. Lustig, you are phenomenal. I've been following you a long time, just listening to you speak on UCTV and deliver powerful, powerful presentations. And particularly, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing in the African American community and other communities of color, because we tend to be ignored and maybe underserved and just kind of overlooked and whatever else you want to, whatever the superlative you can come up with. But in any event.
Ms. Perry, I am a pediatrician, and I believe that everyone deserves a chance. And I am sickened. I lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and I am sickened by the fact that the African American and Latino communities are abused by the food industry.
You're going to make me cry.
I want to fix it. It's one of the reasons I do what I do.
Wow. I'm sending you a virtual hug through the through this Zoom, because it's people like you that have a voice that can make an impact. And even though it takes a long time to turn around a 90-mile-an-hour train,
Yep.
you're doing everything within your capability and your power to do so. And I just want to commend you for the work that you do. Thank
Well,
you.
I do appreciate it, but I will tell you that I need your help because there are a lot of people in the African American community who are sugar addicts
Yes.
and
Yes.
who don't want to hear this message.
Yes. I agree with you. I am studying to become certified to coach on nutrition. And it's hard when you're dealing with your immediate family members. They're the ones that listen to you the least because they feel like you don't really know what you're talking about. And they give you this excuse of, well, I'm going to die of something. I might as well die enjoying what I love.
Yeah,
But
I
they don't.
hear that
Yeah.
all the time. I hear that. Let me tell you a quick story. Okay.
Okay.
We have time for a story, right, Ben?
Absolutely.
In the year 2000, a while ago, I lived in Memphis, Tennessee, right? I told you about that. And I was a member of a professional organization called MASPN, Memphis Area Society of Parenteral and Enteral Nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And we got an audience with the Memphis Board of Aldermen to go and talk about why there were no supermarkets in the area of Memphis called Orange Mound, which was the poorest section near the airport. Okay, because all they had was Popeye's fried chicken
Oh
and
gosh.
stores with Coca-Cola and Twinkies. That was that was all there was. And we went to, there were fast food restaurants, but there was like
Well.
a supermarket. So we went to the Memphis area, we went to the Memphis Board of Aldermen and we stated our case. And there were 17 aldermen up on this dais, and the head of it looked down through his glasses, his long nose and his mustache. And he said to us something that I couldn't answer. He said, "You want to take away the single thing in these people's lives that give them pleasure?" I didn't have an answer for that. And we walked away, and of course, nothing was done. I have an answer for it now, but I didn't know enough back then to be able to counter that properly. The point is, to a point, he's right, except pleasure is the wrong arbiter. It's not about pleasure. It's about happiness. And pleasure and happiness are not the same. And I wrote an entire book on the fact that pleasure and happiness are not the same. It's called The Hacking of the American Mind. And we talk about dopamine, which is pleasure, and happiness, which is serotonin. We talk about the fact that the more pleasure you seek, the more unhappy you get. And that is called addiction. And sugar is addicting.
And with that, Crystal, I'm also curious, do you have a specific question as well? Oh, hang on. I think somehow I muted you by accident. Okay. Yeah, Crystal.
Yeah, you muted me. That's fine.
Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Very quickly, there's so many people that mentioned the whole smoothie thing, green smoothies versus fruit smoothies. I happen to do green smoothies periodically, and I have heeded your warning about what these machines do to destroy the fiber. Because I do add fruit to it. I add like a half a cup of frozen blueberries and 5 strawberries.
Well, that makes it not a green smoothie anymore.
Exactly. So I think that for myself and others who are doing the smoothie thing, we may need to revisit another way to do that. I don't know if just making a straight green smoothie with water and greens, and then maybe mixing in a tablespoon or two of some type of fiber, powdered fiber.
After the smoothie is done.
After.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a possibility. That's my question.
Well, so, I mean, you can add Metamucil, but that's only soluble fiber. And like I said, soluble fiber is good. It's not bad. It's just not enough. You only get 2 of the 6 benefits.
Right, right.
And there's
Okay,
no,
well,
and there's no insoluble fiber you can add, at least not yet. Hopefully,
I see.
when our product, BioLumen, comes online, then you will be able to.
Okay, BioLumen. And if I wanted to get more information about that, do I just need to go to your website?
No, biolumen.tech.
Okay, biolumen.tech. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thanks very much, Crystal. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up now Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, thanks so much. It was really informative. So don't cringe, but here's my question. How do you feel about a date or two in your breakfast oats a few days a week and or figs, like 3 or 4 organic figs once, twice a week as a treat?
So when you said, how do you feel about a date or two? I thought you were asking me out.
I saw your wedding ring, so I knew it was out of the question.
So dates and figs are relatively high in sugar. They have some fiber, but they are relatively high in sugar. But if they're rare, like once or twice a week, it's fine. It's terrific. People always say, attack me. Let me make it very clear. I am for dessert. For dessert. I am not for dessert for breakfast, lunch, snacks, and dinner. All right. And right now, everyone's having dessert for breakfast and dessert for lunch and dessert for dinner. If you are having Chinese chicken salad for lunch, you are having dessert. That's dessert. That's not a chicken salad. That is dessert. Okay. All you have to do is look at the amount of sugar in a Chinese chicken salad, and you will understand why I say that. All right. Now take the National School Breakfast Program, which 29% of children currently are enrolled in. Okay. What is a standard National School Breakfast Program breakfast? A bowl of Fruit Loops and a glass of orange juice. That is 41 grams of sugar. The American Heart Association says that for children, the upper limit for sugar should be 3 teaspoons or 12 grams of sugar for the whole day. This is 41 grams of sugar. So it's more than triple the limit, and it's just breakfast. You want to know what's wrong? That's what's wrong. Now, if you're having a date or two or a fig or two in a bowl of otherwise savory cereal like muesli that hasn't been oversweetened, and that's what you use to sweeten it, and it's once or twice a week, hey, have at it. No problem. That's dessert. No problem. As long as it's safe and rare.
Excellent. Thank you very, very much for that, Doctor. Folks, just a friendly reminder, we have a few more minutes, and if anybody else wants to raise their hand, we'd love to take your questions. This is really a remarkable opportunity for us, so please go ahead and raise your hand. In the meantime, I've got a question.
Sure.
A little bit, not exactly, a little bit off topic. Before I get there, it looks like we've got Stephen back, so let's go ahead and get to Stephen. Stephen, welcome.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Again, this is my second or third question, but just a great presentation, and thank you.
Thank you.
So my question to you now is, what do you eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
You're not allowed to know. Serious. People always ask me, and it's kind of, I'll tell you what I normally have. I usually have some whitefish salad on a crisp bread. Does that help? That's a standard breakfast for me. Trader Joe's crisp bread, because I'm wheat free, and those are wheat free, and whitefish salad that my wife gets at Costco. That's what I have.
What about lunch and dinner?
I knew you were going to ask that. Again, you're not allowed to know. I'm not the food police, and I eat well, and I am mindful of what I eat.
We can go right ahead and leave it right there. And thanks for that. And so again, I'll jump into this question that I had. Bear with me. It's a statement by Dr. John Abramson. And Dr. John Abramson wrote, "The pharmaceutical companies now control most of the medical research agenda, and their primary goal is not to improve Americans' health, but to maximize their own profits," which they do masterfully. "To that end, they control the design, conduct, and analysis of most clinical research, and they largely control the delivery of the results of that research across the entire spectrum, from the most respected peer-reviewed medical journals to all those annoying drug ads on television. Although the supposed purpose of this information is to educate doctors and the public, it is, truth be told, carefully curated to disseminate key marketing messages designed to maximize drug sales." And so the question is, do you agree with all of this?
Absolutely, 110%. I totally agree with it. And I assume that's what we're going to be talking about at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, whatever time it is. 4 o'clock, I think. Right?
Got it. Depending on where you are.
And that's why the book, it says modern medicine there. I've got a whole chapter on Big Pharma and, what their role in this debacle is. Yes, the food industry are the bad guys, but Big Pharma have been the enablers without question.
Got it. Let me just double check if there's any other. It says we don't have another raised hand. Again, folks, a few more minutes. If you want to raise your hand, we'd love to have you come in with a question. I've got another question for you. Again, just a little bit slightly off topic, but what's wrong with clinical trials? And should we assume their information is accurate and unbiased?
Well, first of all, you have to make sure that the clinical trial is actually conducted properly, and a lot of them are not. That's number one. Number two, you have to make sure that you control for all the variables, and a lot of times you're not. Another thing is when you do a clinical trial, sometimes you're evaluating not just one thing against placebo, but two things against placebo. Well, if you're going to evaluate two things against placebo, which often happens in a clinical trial, then you have to evaluate one against the other, not just against the placebo. Okay, so there are all sorts of rules for the statistical analysis of clinical trials, which are not followed. The genius statistician doctor who I refer everybody to understand what's wrong with our clinical trial paradigm is Dr. John Ioannidis at Stanford. He's got the best handle on what's gone wrong in clinical trials. Now, the problem also is understanding the difference in relative risk reduction versus absolute risk reduction versus number needed to treat. These are three separate outcome variables that can be determined from a clinical trial. Invariably, the pharmaceutical company will use whichever one of those three makes their drug look best. And that's bullshit. And that's not the way you do it. All right. There are a whole bunch of things that, can be done to manipulate drug trials so that they look better than they are. For instance, statins. As we talked about, statins, people think statins work. Not so much. And it's, partly because of the statin companies doing this, basically, lying with statistics.
Thank you very much for that. We do have another raised hand, so I'm going to go back to Monty. Let's go ahead. Hi, Monty.
I just missed this presentation, but I heard you talking about honey, which is one of something I have a lot to do with because they do beekeeping. But the biblical account of honey doesn't make any reference to drinking or using honey in liquid form. Is it any safer to eat the honey, since the Bible says eating honey is good? Because it constitutes the fiber and the comb and the works. Does it make the release of sugar in the blood less or slower?
No. So the studies on honey are, for the most part, done by industry. So that's a big problem all by itself. Because if it's industry sponsored, they're only going to provide the data that, makes their product look good. That's number one. Number two, a lot of marketing info on honey says, oh, it's got micronutrients and it's got, natural antibiotics and all this stuff. The studies that have been done independently demonstrate no meaningful effect of those things on any parameter that we can measure or study. Otherwise, honey's just glucose and fructose. It's just sucrose. It's just like sugar. The good news is because it is thick, because it dissolves relatively poorly, you don't tend to use very much of it, and because it's expensive if it's real honey. So that all those things make honey a little bit better, but not really. I mean, gram for gram, ounce for ounce, it's just sugar.
Thanks, Dr. Lustig. And let me go ahead and again, I don't see a hand at this point, but I've got another question for you.
Well, it's got to be a 3-minute question there, Ben.
You said it. I agree. We're on the same page. In fact, we'll make it 2 minutes. And again, a little bit off topic, but I'm curious your thoughts on colonoscopies. Do they save lives?
Colonoscopy?
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, yeah, no, they save lives. Absolutely. Okay. Colonoscopy is one of the good screening tests, and I'm due for mine.
If that's one of the good screening tests, what are some of the not so good screening tests?
PSA doesn't work. Okay, so some screening tests are good, some screening tests are bad. They're working on screening tests, they're, liquid biopsies and a whole bunch of other, newfangled things to look at blood tests or look at DNA and, in the blood, of foreign antigens and things like that. So there are other things, there are things coming along. And it's not that modern medicine is useless. Modern medicine is good. It's just that modern medicine lost its way when it comes to chronic disease. And the reason is because chronic disease is mitochondrial disease, and there are no medicines that get to the mitochondria. Only food does. But food can either help the mitochondria, like glucose, or it can hurt the mitochondria, like fructose. So not all food is medicine. Some food is poison.